Isang mapagpalang araw sa iyo, kapatid. Samahan mo ako muli sa isang refleksyon, sa isang talakayan, isang pag-aaral patungkol sa Santa Trinidad.
Do you want to know?
Since we are celebrating Trinity Sunday this coming Sunday, and we just celebrated the Pentecost Sunday, last Sunday, the celebration of the coming of the Holy Spirit, since Jesus promised this presence of the Holy Spirit that proceeds from the Father and the Son, and is of one substance with the Father and the Son. And that is according to our doctrine. Ngunit isa sa napaka-controversial na issue ang usapin patungkol sa Santa Trinidad among Christians. There are dissenting ideas, dissenting theological and biblical opinions, theological and biblical articulations regarding the Holy Trinity, and those, of course, who oppose this Trinitarian doctrine, this classical Trinitarian doctrine. Last Sunday, we celebrated the Pentecost Sunday, right? The church celebration of the coming of the Holy Spirit. And it is a celebration commemorating the promised presence of the Holy Spirit. That is one of the three persons in the Holy Trinity or of the Holy Trinity. So biblically, God revealed Himself in three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. At yun naman yung ating pagpapatotoo na ang Diyos, ipinakilala niya ang kanyang sarili o ipinakilala ng Diyos ang kanyang sarili bilang Ama, Anak at ng Banal na Diwa. At yun naman ang, when we speak of the Holy Trinity, we are speaking of the three persons in one Godhead, the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. So to speak of God as Triune is to speak of God as Holy Being in the community. Kung pinag-uusapan ang Diyos bilang tatlong persona o nagkatawang tao o ipinakilala ang kanyang sarili bilang Ama, Anak at ng Espiritu Santo, we are dealing with the God who resides and who prepares to be in the community. God is a triune God who did not isolate Himself from the community, and He made manifest Himself within the community. The Israelite community, the Palestinian community, and many other community of faith. And even that beyond Christian faith, God can dwell Himself. God dwells Himself, and He can transcend beyond religious affiliation, religious denomination. So when we reminisce the history of the church, especially the institutionalization of the church dogma, one cannot deny the fact that its formation had been shaped by dissensions, conflicts, and division. But through the early church fathers as well as political leaders, for that matter, who defended and sided respectively those or to establish the classical Trinitarian doctrine, it paved the way for the official acceptance of the Trinitarian doctrine as orthodox in the 4th century. However, it remains to be a divisive ecclesiastical issue, right? Naging matingkad na usapin, hindi lamang noon, kundi maging usapin hanggang ngayon, ang Santa Trinidad. One of the most debated doctrines which led the unified Christianity into divisive pluralistic religious diaspora is the belief in the Holy Trinity. It is the attempt of the established church to define and articulate from humanity's finite mental capacity the mystery of an infinite God. While the reality of God is beyond human comprehension, theology grounded in faith is humanity's discipline and practice to communicate who God is. At yun naman yung ating disiplina, yun naman yung ating paraan upang maipahayag, ipakilala sa pamamagitan ng ating kaisipan, limitado man ang ating kaisipan, sa kung sino nga ba ang Diyos. Ayon sa Kanya, na nagpakilala ng Kanyang sarili, of course, hindi lamang sa kasaysayan ng Israel, hindi lamang sa panahon ng ating Panginoong Hesus, kundi maging sa presensya ng Banal na Diwa, ang iba't ibang mga kapahayagan ng Diyos ng Kanyang sarili. In reality, God remains who God is. And that is correct. Humans' mental capacity is but limited, right? Nalilimitahan yan. Kaya hindi naman pwedeng ikahon lamang doon sa ating pagkaunawa kung sino nga ba ang Diyos. He remains to be who God is. Christian attempt in theology is just a discipline that provides a glimpse of the nature and being of this God of the Bible. But theology is our attempt, of course, to at least present a glimpse, showcase a glimpse of who God is. That is relative, of course, of our understanding of God and even that of the manifestation of God Himself through the aid of the Holy Scriptures. Responsible Trinitarian thinking commences with the economic Trinity that is concerned with the activity of God, and this classical thought leads to a deeper knowledge about God with the immanent Trinity that is concerned with the identity and being of God as a guiding reference. So the economic Trinity and the immanent Trinity. The economic Trinity is concerned about the activity of God. And the immanent Trinity is concerned about the identity of God. So the Christian confession of God as Triune is a conclusive doctrinal statement about the nature of the Holy Other. And this accords the entire account of biblical witness. The Bible communicates three centers of divine activity. This divine activity reveals God as Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. This biblical Trinitarian revelation was affirmed by the Church in the historic Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed, or Constantinopolitan Creed, or commonly known as the Nicene Creed. The nucleus of the traditional Trinitarian doctrine asserts the oneness of God, yet distinguished in three persons, namely, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Merong iisang Diyos, ngunit ipinakilala niya ang kanyang sarili sa tatlong persona bilang Ama, Anak, at ng banal na diwa. Inevitably, dissensions that challenge this established doctrine emerge. We cannot deny the fact. History tells us that dissensions emerge, especially the formation of this Trinitarian doctrine. Among these include, number 1, the subordinationism. Number 2, the modalism. And number 3, the tritheism. Ano nga ba ang pinagkaiba? Ano nga bang sinusulong ng iba't ibang mga doktrina? Una, sabi ko kanina, subordinationism. It teaches that there is one God, the Eternal Father. However, the two persons are but inferior divinities or inferior deities. Itinuturo ng subordinationism na mayroong mataas na Ama at ang dalawang persona ay mas mababa kaysa sa Ama. From the word subordinate beings or subordinate deities, mas mababa daw yung dalawa, namely the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Number 2, modalism teaches that the three persons are mere masks of God that do not necessarily manifest God's inmost being. Mga maskara lamang daw ang tatlong persona. They do not necessarily manifest God's inmost being. And number 3, the tritheism. It indoctrinates that God is revealed in three individual and separate deities. They are not of one substance. They are three deities according to tritheism. Meron ng tatlong Diyos ayon sa turo ng tritheismo. Samantalang ating pinaniniwalaan bilang mga Kristiyano na naniniwala sa Santa Trinidad, mayroong isang Diyos na ipinakilala niya ang kanyang sarili bilang Ama, Anak, at ng Espiritu Santo. Holy Trinity communicates the close connection of Jesus and the Spirit as well as Jesus, the Son, and the Father. And so when we talk about Trinity, we do not only uphold the identity of three persons, we also validate the relationship of the three persons in the Godhead. In this, we affirm God's active relational nature. His relationship with the world demonstrates His willingness to connect with the world. He is not just a transcendent being who moves and acts beyond the world, but He is a God who is an immanent being whose movement is manifested in His active presence in the world. Moreover, God's relationship is completely expressed in love. To enter into an eternal relationship is to enter into a lifelong covenant of love. And that when God entered the world through His Son, He entered into a lifelong covenant, or He entered into a lifelong covenant of love. Relationship that is shaped by love. The triune nature of God vividly portrays God's life and existence in the community. The Trinity attests the sociality of God. He is not just concerned with an individual being, but he is concerned with the persons in human community. The Trinity substantiates the nature of God to indwell within human community to develop a more relational connection. God establishes and maintains community. His indwelling through the Son and the Spirit affirms God's divine initiation to reveal himself, not isolated from the world or community, but in personal connection and presence with and in the world. The doctrine of the Trinity is not only an attempt of the Church to describe the immeasurable nature of God, but it is the Church's desire to celebrate and affirm the scriptural and personal manifestations of God. Manifestations of God in the world as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Muli, magandang araw sa iyo kapatid at pagpalain ka nawa ng ating Panginoon.